Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on Upfront in the Prophetic. We are so blessed that you are here. Well, I wanted to ask you all a question. Did you know that the vagus nerve regulates over 1,100 functions in the body? I never knew that. Not until like about a year and a couple months ago. Well, it affects your digestive system, inflammation, heart rate, mood, hormones, immune response. What's exciting is that we now have an innovative, disruptive solution in the health space that supports the vagus nerve in a way, guys, that nothing does out there. I mean, worldwide. Okay, we got the patent for it. If you'd like to learn more about how we're helping people activate their body's master switch and restore balance overall, then call us at 800-803-5129 and one of our team members will get back to you. And I'm just going to show you real quick, guys, okay? So this is the vagus nerve. It starts from the 10th cranial nerve all the way down to your digestive system. Again, it affects your lungs, your heart, your spleen, your stomach, your pancreas, your kidneys, small intestine, large intestine, gallbladder, liver, and so much more. Guys, it's insane. I never knew that it hit all those places. But again, if you want to know more, just contact me. 1 to 2 droppers a day. That's it. Guys, no cold plunges. Okay. No putting a cold wash rag over your face. This activates it. Woo, full body. Hallelujah. Finally something, right? Okay, so enough of that. I wanted to let you know that today's conversation is not casual. No, it's not. It's actually critical. Well, the reason why is because for decades, millions of Americans have trusted what? The banking system, not only the government, but the banking system, believing that it was designed to provide stability, security, and opportunity. But what if the system is something else entirely? What if this whole financial system is a death trap, engineered through debt, deception, and legal complexity to keep people locked in, to keep them in bondage? Well, today I have my brother, Larry Ballard. He is, as you know, a true researcher and a truth teller. And he spent years uncovering the banking practices, housing fraud, because he was actually in the real estate business. He's told you that numerous times. So we're going to talk about just how the banks really operate. We'll break the system down. Actually, I won't break the system down. Larry will. And we're going to bring forth to you all awareness and the truth. So without further ado, let's bring on Larry Ballard. Hi, Larry. How are you?
I'm okay. Hi, everyone.
You're okay. Okay. So we had another glitch with the computer, guys. That's why we're running a little late, but we're here and Larry's here. And you look great, Larry. You know what? The other camera, yeah, it's a positive, but you know, everyone can see your face. It's clear and they can hear your voice. So we're on like Donkey Kong, my brother.
Everything's fine. So let's tell the people why it's such a pleasure to do business with the banks and have them keep you in poverty while they're living in wealth. So that's what this is all about. I can do this without slides, but you wouldn't get the impact. You wouldn't really understand the nuances. So this is one of those things where we've got to take a deep dive, go almost line by line by line. But this first slide's kind of fun. Basically, I guess you guys will probably recognize that little guy down in the bottom corner who's saying, "My precious." And what is his precious? Well, in the movie, it was the ring, but here it's your money. It's your money, and it's greed. It's basically greed. The rich get rich, and the poor get poor. Couldn't be more true. When you find out what the banks do to you, I think it's Henry Ford said, "If the people really knew what the bankers do to them, we'd have a revolt tomorrow." Well, folks, after today, you're going to know. So it's going to be up to you what you're going to do. But luckily, there are options coming. There are options coming with the new financial system where maybe we won't have to live in this debt trap any longer. So let's go down and break it down. So here we go.
All right.
We're going
You know
into
what? I wanted to do one impersonation. Are you ready?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. Precious. That's how he sounded. My precious. So demonic, right? But that's how it is. So I just had to do that. My son, our son Noah does a really good voiceover of that. But anyway, let's move along, Larry.
Okay, so basically, it's a debt trap. They have used money to enslave us for thousands of years, and you know what they thought? If we make it complex enough, if we put enough layers into the fraud and deception, oh, they're so dumb they'll never figure it out. Well, some of us have figured it out, and now we're telling the others. So this is what you got. We, the people, owe the banking cartel interest on the very first dollar ever created. And that dollar was created out of nothing. And what it did was to create a debt obligation that kept you in slavery for the entirety of your life. And I'm going to read a quote here. It's from Henry Ford. He says, "It is well enough that the people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system, for if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning." Well, folks, tomorrow's only 24 hours away. I don't expect you to go out and participate in a revolution, but I do expect you to start to look for alternatives for where you can put your money, because you're going to understand that they are making a lot of money. And you, even if you put your money in a savings account, I went to a restaurant the other day and I was really shocked. I'm going to tell you a personal story. There's this little lady working in the restaurant. Well, her husband, he works for a chicken farmer. I mean, they have thousands, millions of chickens, right? Well, he gets a house for free. He gets all his utilities for free. He gets his health care. And so that pays, they've gotten almost no debt. And then she's working in a restaurant. So they put $1,000 a month into savings, $1,000 a month for the kids. And I said, "Well, where are you putting it?" "In the bank." "Oh, okay. Well, what are you getting?" "0.5%. I said, "So, okay. So you're getting 0.5%, and they're getting 10 if it's a personal loan, and up to 30, 35 if it's a credit card." I said, "Honey, you got to give me a call. You got to find out that money that you're putting in, because of the interest that's you're getting, and because of the inflation that's being inflicted upon us, that money is not growing. It's not like Benjamin Franklin said years ago, a penny earned is a penny saved is a penny earned." No, you're actually losing money because of the inflation that we have, and our eyes got like saucers. I mean, that's what we need to get across to the people. Even if you put your money in thinking that you're saving, you're not saving. You're losing money. Your money is becoming worth less and less every day that it's in that bank. Let's go down to the next one, and we're going to basically talk about. Did I get off one from you? Hold on, I'll just use your slide if I can read that. Understanding the debt system. The dollar is nothing but a computer entry. And now, by the way, we're not just talking about the central banking system. We know now by now that the central banking system basically prints money from nowhere. But we're going to find out later in this presentation that the banks do it too. And I'm going to tell you exactly how they do it. So the very first dollar that you put in creates a debt obligation. It's called a treasury bond. And that treasury bond is an IOU. So basically, the Fed prints a dollar bill, and then the Treasury in turn prints a bond, and that's what creates the debt bond that traps you. The bond is the unconstitutional, hear that word, unconstitutional pledge to tax your labor. They were never allowed to do that. And so the IRS, the Federal Reserve, and every bank out there is basically committing fraud against you, the American people. Let's go down to the next slide, and we'll see how they orchestrate boom-bust cycles, how they trap us. And oh boy, are you going to get your eyes open when we get further down. We're going to have a collapse that's not like any collapse we've ever had. In the past, it was always one. There's three engines to the economy. There's the real estate market, there's the stock market, and then there's the bond market. And one of them is ample to trigger a huge collapse. 29 was the stock market. 08 was the real estate. But wait till you see what's going to happen this time. So anyway, here's what they do. They basically They basically increase the money supply. So there's lots of money out there. They lower the interest rates. So it's cheap. So it's very tempting. They target an investment, either the stock market, for example, or the real estate market. And you go in and you're making money and everything looks great, but you're not understanding that you're in a bubble that's being artificially created that can be popped at any second. So they drive the prices up and up and up, and you're happy and you think you're doing great. And they keep telling you the stock market's going through the roof. You should be happy. You're making so much money. And then bam, they pull the trigger. They trigger a collapse. They dry everything up. They call the margin calls in because people a lot of times when they're making those investments aren't paying cash. They're doing it with leverage, and then they dry up the credit. So now those people can't even go borrow money in order to make the margin calls. So what they do, they lose the equity that they put into it. So now they've really got themselves in trouble. They put money in and they've lost it, and they buy the valued assets that's now on the other side. So the global financial elite, the banker gangsters, are going out there and they're buying stocks for 10 cents on the dollars. They're buying houses that are being foreclosed on by a very cycle that they created, by the very bubble that they created, that they popped on cue. And then they acquire controlling interest in stock in corporations. So you go to 29, and the stocks over a 3-year period went down 90%. The stock market did. And they bought those stocks for 10 cents on the dollar, right? Well, they didn't have to go out and buy that. Think about what they did. They didn't have to go out and buy any company. They didn't buy a single company. They just had to take enough of their ill-gotten gains, the money that they created out of thin air, and buy enough to get leverage in that corporation, to get on the stock market, to get controlling interest. And so it wasn't even that they were paying 10%. They were paying maybe a penny on the dollar, and got control of almost all of the stock market. And that happened in 1929, folks. I mean, can you imagine that? And then they use the stocks. They use the system that they control to enslave us. So let's go on down to the next slide, and we'll find out more about what they do to us. And now we're somehow or other, Francine, one of our slides got flipped from my end to yours. So I'm now on a different slide. Now we're back. Okay. So here we are. So here's what they do. 1933, they declared bankruptcy, and we became what? Oh, wait a minute. Francine, are we a democracy?
No, we're supposed to be in a republic.
But are we a democracy?
Well, they consider us a democracy.
Well, we are technically. Here's why. Here it is: the Emergency Banking Act in 1933, and a declaration of a declaration of bankruptcy. So 29 hit. By 33, we were bankrupt, and they declared that we were bankrupt. And here's what it says: this was right out of our government database. With the constitutional republic now dissolved, the receivers of the bankruptcy have adopted a new form of government. The United States, this new form of government is known as a democracy, being, listen to this, an established socialist communist order under a new government for the United States of America. That's where we're at. So we not only had the event that happened earlier with the Act of 1871 that basically put us under the corporation, but now they've gone a step further, and we're a socialist communist order. And what did they do? Basically, they said what all of the positions in the government existed in name only, right? So what did they do? They brought in an entire army of unelected bureaucrats in order to enslave us and basically write the laws and regulations that were not intended to help us, but to help the donor class and to help the bankers. So we are in absolute, total, complete slavery. Comments before we go on, Francine?
Well, we are. I look at even the whole voting system. I know I'm regressing here, but the Bilderbergs, they tried, to get Hillary in before, and of course this whole thing debacle with Joe Biden. We know that really, this is all a show. Yet a lot of things for real and real time as well. But the Bilderbergs used to go ahead and say, okay, this is who we're going to have in, and this is what they're going to do. So that's just like the banking system. I mean, just to have control, the whole thing, Larry, is massive control over the people. But we, praise God, we're breaking free from that. More and more people, their eyes are being opened. They're hearing the truth, Larry, and they're breaking free from the bondage of the government. It's awesome.
You know what's really sad, Francine?
What's that?
When we were founded, none of this existed. We
Yeah.
were truly a republic, a government of the people, by the people, for the people, and the banks couldn't do the things that they've given themselves the right to do. We had one tax, a simple sales tax. The central banking system didn't exist. The IRS didn't exist. All the other myriad of taxes didn't exist. We simply paid a simple sales tax. Property tax didn't exist. But you know what? If you're part of a republic, you've got to be informed and you got to stand up. And the people were asleep. We didn't pay attention, and they stole our government from us, and they stole our economic system from us, and they put us in slavery. And that's the absolute truth. Let's go on to this next slide. And this is what I basically was trying to explain to that girl in the restaurant. She just really couldn't see it. And finally, I asked her, well, how much are you getting in interest in your bank account? It was 0.5%. And so I explained to her, the banks create an interest rate. Listen to this, so that whatever they give you is always less than the inflation rate. And what that means is over time, you're not making money, you're losing money. So go over to the other side. And here's an example. She was getting 0.5%. And basically the interest rate, I just took an example. I think it's way higher than this. I said the inflation rate's 3%. I bet it's 10, 15, 20%. So even in that parsed down example, she's losing 2.5% on that $1,000 she puts in every single solitary month. But if the inflation rate is really 10%, she's losing $100 every single solitary month. That's the banking system. And then what happens? That interest rates you get, it fluctuates. It moves. You know why? They have all the data in the world. So they're constantly calculating what is the inflation rate. Oh, well, we've got to lower the interest rate because inflation isn't going up as fast as we thought it was. So they've purposely created a system where they're trying to tell you, put your money in the bank, put it in a savings account or whatever. And it's legal theft is what it is. Shall we go on? You got any comments to make on that one?
No, let's go.
Now we're going to talk about just exactly how big that theft is. I mean, it's pretty big. So if you're getting 0.5% or 1%, what's the bank give? That's not much. Oh, if you go on in to borrow some money tomorrow, Francine, as a private citizen, depending on your credit, they're going to charge you somewhere between 7%. Generally, it's 10%, 7 to 10%. Well, you're only getting 0.5% to 1%. So you can see they're making some pretty good money. And then if it's a credit card, they're making 18 to 30 to 35%, and you're getting 0.5% to 1%. I mean, so the difference, the delta between the two is absolutely astronomical. But wait a minute, when we get to the next slide or one of the ones down, you're going to find out that's just the icing on the cake. Well, wait a minute, we're still not done even with this one, because you know what? Now they're going to charge you to maintain your account. So you're going to pay maintenance fees, foreign transaction fees. You're going to pay activity fees, ATM fees, overdraft fees. Oh my God. On top of all that money that they're making on the interest on your money. And then, oh, you know what? You overcharged your account by $10. And you know what they do? They charge you a flat 35%. So in that example, they're making 350% interest. Who in the world would knowingly agree to a system like this? They lie to us. They keep us dumb. They keep us so that we don't realize what they're doing to us. Comments before we go on? This next one is where you really get the full implication of what they're doing to us. So we go on? All right, here it is. Now, on top of what we just did with their interest rates, 10% for a private citizen, 30 to 35% perhaps for a credit card, they've got something called fractional reserve banking. And what that means is, let me explain it. Now, remember, the money was created by the Fed out of nothing to begin with. It's just an entry into a computer system. But the banks also print money out of nothing. Here's how that works. The fractional reserve banking system. Somebody deposits $1,000 in their savings account, say that girl from the restaurant. And then what happens? The bank can loan 90% of that out. So they loan $900 out. Well, wait, they're not done. Then they can loan 90% of that 900 and 90% of the next amount until that $1,000 maybe equals $10,000. And they don't have They don't have 10% in reserves. No, they might have 1%. But wait a minute, it gets better, because in COVID, you know what they did? They said, we're in a national crisis and we don't want to have runs on the bank. So we're going to soften this a little bit. You don't have to keep 10%. You just decide how much you want to keep. If you don't want to keep any, that's okay, because we don't want bank runs. And so we've got banks out there now with what's going on that have literally no cushions. No cushions. They're a heartbeat away, a breath away from a bank run. You follow me?
Yes.
You see how crazy this is? Do you see how illegal and unconstitutional and immoral it is? I mean, it's just unbelievable. So bottom line is, I think I go back to what Ford said. If the people understood, we should have a riot tomorrow. Not a riot, but we should turn the banking systems inside out and upside down. And by the way, if you do have your money in a bank, they're in a bit of an interesting position right now, because a lot of these big banks, they're bullion banks. They're involved in the silver squeeze. And come the end of the month in March, guess what? They're going to get huge surprise, because they're not going to have silver to deliver on those silver contracts. And how that works is, if they can't deliver the silver, then they have to pay out the account at whatever the spot price is. So let's say that silver contract was for $20. And now the day that they have to settle that contract, let's say the spot price is $120 on every ounce of silver. They just lost $100. We're looking at billions and billions of dollars that are going to hit the banking system in the next couple of months. I mean, if this isn't the perfect storm that's rising, I don't know what would be. Comments on it before we go on, Francine?
No, it's just amazing that we've been in the dark for so long. And, I just started learning about this probably 2-3 years ago, and just, oh my gosh, it just makes your stomach turn, I mean, people are getting fed up. I'm seeing it across the board, Larry. A lot of people are shouting out, "Hey, I'm not even going to pay taxes anymore. I'm going to buy silver and XRP, and I'm going to get my money out of the banks and so forth." And you can see why. I mean, this is what they've been doing. And then, Larry, say that I want to go to the bank and take $10,000 out. Oh, well, I'm going to have to wait. Or say that I put $10,000 in, all right? Oh, I have to wait like 7 days, a week, 10 days. I mean, this is ridiculous. And it's all because of fractional banking. Crazy.
And I did an emergency show a few weeks ago with some people. I didn't do it with you, just with a couple of people. And I told them what was coming. I said, basically, they're in trouble. They're anticipating what's in trouble. And what they're doing is, I learned about it myself early on by accident. Here's what happened. I had to send somebody $10,000. I was my editor, my publisher. And we sent the money out by wire, didn't go through. We sent it again, didn't go through. We sent it a third time, didn't go through. Why? Because they don't have the money. So basically, they're trying to do everything they can do to keep you from sending your money by wire to someplace. And now what they're doing, just what you said, you can go into the bank and you say, I want $10,000 of my money. And now increasingly what they're saying is, okay, we don't have it right now. Come back next week and we'll give it to you. And so they're basically locking the banking system down because of the crisis that they're running into right now. But look, before we go any further, let's go off script for a second and let's talk about the inverse of what we've been talking about. So basically, the people are understanding. Trump knows. Trump is working. He's got, and then coming in the summer, we'll have a new Fed chair, and Trump is pushing everything he can to get the interest rates down, and he's pushing everything he can to get us out from under the IRS and to get us back on a sovereign currency. And so let's go back and look at what we just talked about. But now let's go back and turn the clock back and let's look at what happened. Go back to the 1920s when we were looking at everything that we talked about before, and the farmers were getting their farms taken away. And they sued and they got all the way to the Supreme Court. Now, here's where we're going, folks. So this is what has been. And now we've been talking about what could be again. So at this time, the farmers won. They won the case. And it opened the door for the banking system to be changed down the road. We still have to be aware. We still have to fight. So what was decided? The bankers came in and said, we've owned this farm for generations. My father owned it and his father before him owned it. We have our sweat and blood into it. We've got years and years worth of money that's been poured in and livestock and equipment. We have real tangible equity in this piece of property. What does the bank have? Nothing. Nothing.
Right.
The money that they put that they called collateral was printed out of thin air. So the Supreme Court says, you know what? This is not a legal contract. The bank had nothing. Both parties have to have something that's tangible in the agreement, or it's basically what? Illegal. It's fraud. And they won. And you know what that is leading us to? It's leading us to the banking overhauls that Trump is doing. It's leading us to the situation where Trump is saying soon, very soon, we will get rid of the IRS and the Fed will go from the Internal Revenue Service to the External Revenue Service. We'll get rid of the tax liabilities that we have, and we will go to a system that's fair and equitable. And we're going to get to be able, this is the basis for NESARA, for the transfer of wealth. And so if we look at that, I hope just a few months down the road, that court case is going to kick in and enable us to implement NESARA. And all of a sudden, you won't have property taxes, you won't have IRS taxes. And so the whole system is capable of being changed. But right now, we're still fighting for that freedom. So people need to know, and they need to stand up, and we need to get involved, because if you're part of a republic, you have a responsibility to be knowledgeable, to be informed, and to stand for the rights of yourself and other people. Let's go on down.
No.
And this one is near and dear to my heart, and my heart bleeds for all those young people out there who can't buy a house, because that was the American dream. We couldn't own property under feudal Europe. And so we came here to own property, and we think we do. Hey, I closed on a house last month. Hooray! Hooray! I own a home. No, you don't. No, you don't. You know, here's what you own. You owe a lifetime debt obligation. And that's it. That's what you own, because they're going to create a situation where you're doomed. So let me go through it. This is my real estate background. So you bought that house, and you're paying your mortgage and paying your mortgage and paying your mortgage. And you know what? They know that you're likely to move 7 times in your lifetime. And every time you move, they start that amortization table over. And what they know is the way they've set the front loaded the interest rate, you don't pay half of that mortgage until you're 26. So you pay half of your mortgage in the last 4 years. That's egregious. That's unbelievable. They shouldn't in any way be able to do that. And it's even worse. So now you moved. And you know what? They start your whole mortgage over again. You start at year 1. So if you can see that the average person moves second time, there are millions of Americans out there who retire and never, ever, ever pay off their home, because the mortgage just starts over and over and over again. The amortization goes back to day 1. And then let's say you work in corporate America and they transfer you, and you go and you get a big salary increase. Hooray, hooray. I just made $25,000 more. Well, you just slipped backwards, because now your amortization table, you were in year 25. You were almost ready to where you can go in that last 4 years and pay that house off. And now you're back to where? To the very first month on that mortgage table. It's just unbelievable. There's no reason except for pure greed that they should be able to do that to us. So by the year 30, when you finish that off, if you ever do, you've paid 2 times more than what the contract price was. So that's the slavery system that they have you in. But it doesn't have to be that way. It absolutely doesn't have to be that way. There's no way that we should be put in that position. So let somebody say, I'm gonna forget what their laws say, because they were passed to do what? To enslave us, right? So let's look at it from what would be a fair and equitable system. So I'm kind of making this off the top of my head here, but here we go. So you buy a house, and let's say you can't afford a 20% down payment because of our financial situation in the world right now. Here's what might be nice to do, and the banks could do this. So you pay 5% down, and then all of your money that you pay for the next several months goes into down payment. So within just 18 months, maybe, you might have a 20% mortgage. All of a sudden, you're not on an ARM anymore. You're not in the jeopardy that you were when you only put 5% down and had an ARM. You've got a conventional 20% loan. You know what they do then? Here's what I propose. We start the mortgage over again at month one, and they don't prorate it. So basically, you've got a 30-year loan, and you're getting 1/30th of that paid off every month, basically every year, so that basically you're 10 years into it, and instead of having almost no equity, you've got a 30 and 33 and a third percent equity in that property. So if anything ever happens and they foreclose on you, well, guess what? Now we go into another scenario. What do they do now when they foreclose? They basically take everything. They don't give you your equity back. So now what we need to do is say, you know what, that's theft.
Yeah.
So now I got 10% equity. I have 33% equity. So I'll give you your $10,000 because I was behind on the mortgage from the financial collapse that you created. But hey, I get the remaining money. I get my equity back. Do you see how simple it would be to fix the system? I mean, it's unbelievable what they do to us. But because we're ignorant, we don't know what they're doing. We don't know what to demand. That's why knowledge is power. That's why I do presentations like this, so people can understand what's been done to them. And we can write laws. We can get to our politicians. We can force things to be changed that give us equity. All right, let's go on down to the next slide.
All right.
And
That's
you know what? Go ahead.
Mm.
Actually, I kind of covered that slide off the cuff, so we can just pass right by it because I just basically did the whole slide without it being up. Oh my God, you poor kids. When I went to school, the tuition was pretty low, but now, you know, the government got involved and they started pumping money into school loans, and they made it attractive, and then they changed the rules, and then all of a sudden they said, you know, we're not going to let these kids out because we want them hooked from the very beginning. As soon as they get out in that job market, we want them to have $150,000 debt, and just to make sure they can't get out, we're going to pass a law so that even if they declare bankruptcy, they can't get out of their student loan. And we're gonna just fix them up. So we're gonna water down our education system so that they go in and they get a degree, unless they're a doctor or a lawyer or something technical. The degrees that they get have very little to do with what the marketplace needs. So I can't tell you how many times I've gone into a restaurant and I've had a waiter or waitress come up and wait on me, and we get to talking, and I find out they've got a 4-year college degree and they're working in a restaurant. And and they're paying $100,000 school loans, and they're barely able to get by, and they can't afford to buy a house. So what they want to do is they want to enslave you from day one, the second you get out. And then if you do manage to get a house, they want to make sure you never pay for it. So they want to make sure from the very first day you got out of school and you start working to the day they put you in a coffin, you are never out from under the debt slavery system, period. That's what the bankers want to do to us. So don't stand for it. Stand up, folks. We need to stand up for our rights. We need, now that you know what they're doing, we can say what we say in mass, and we can get the laws changed. And Donald Trump is out there to help us. Let's go on down to the next slide.
Absolutely.
And
that's why they send us. This is why this is why they need to get these presentations out there for all to see, to wake them up, so we can stand together.
Yep. If we go to this next slide, there's a word that's right in your Bible. It says usury. Usury is horrible. And what do they have in old times? Jubilee, where the debt was wiped out. So you never went your whole life owning debt. And when there was a debt, there were constraints as to how much they could charge. So what have they done to us? So basically, here's what they do. They went out and they said, we've got to get around this usury stuff. So there was every state out there except 6 had usury laws on the books. And so they got their lawyers and they said, well, what would happen if we went to those states that didn't have it? The lawyer says, well, if you incorporate it in those states, you can get around the usury laws for all the other states. And all of a sudden they did that, and every major bank in the world incorporated in one of those 6 states. And the next thing you knew, the rates weren't capped. Trump is talking about going back and capping interest rates now, but all of a sudden they can charge you 18, 20, 30, 35% on credit card debt. And all of a sudden you were a debt slavery when the intention was that they never be allowed to do that. But the banker gangsters found a loophole and they put us under extreme usury. And so not only is the money that you get basically created out of thin air, which creates a debt for you, but they're also making you pay astronomical sums of money. I mean, it's just absolutely horrible. So let's go on down and see what we want to say here. If you charge $1,000 at 30%, here's what they do. I'm still in that same slide. Just see where you're at. Here's what they do. They want to create, remember, the goal is to always create a class of people who are forever in slavery. So they target those least able to pay. So let's say you had $1,000 that you put on your credit card and, you just couldn't pay the full payment. All you could pay was the minimum. Well, here's what happens. Basically, that means that $1,000 debt might take you 10 years to pay off because almost all of the money on a minimum payment goes to the interest rate that they charge you. So if it's 18%, it's 18% a month, every month. I mean, and that's also against the laws. That's not what we had when this nation was founded. So let's go on down to their target market on the next slide. So they're criminals. They say, how can we enslave the people and maximize our profits? Well, let's go after all of those people who are going to be least able to pay, who will basically pay the minimum payment and be in debt forever. And that $1,000 loan might net $10,000 for us before it's over. So they go after students. And, students aren't always real astute when they first get their hands on a credit card. They kind of tend to overindulge a little bit. And then they go up to the elderly who are, just change slides for it.
Sorry. Yep.
So then they go back after the elderly who are on fixed income. And then one of their favorite targets is they go after the single moms. And then you think they don't know what's going on. You lose your job, their database tells them immediately, and they're out after you. And then sending you just lost your job, or they're sending you credit card applications. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. So these are their favorite customers, the ones that they know will not be able to pay that card off each month and will be perpetually debt slaves. So they get us from the day we're born, and they never let go of us. All right, let's go on down. And the next one that you flipped to a second ago talks about the sharks. And basically, the less money you have, the more they orchestrate where you pay, the more indebted you become. So you got a crisis and you need to borrow some money and your credit isn't so good. Well, don't worry. You can go to a payday loan place and you can get some money, or you can go and basically you can transfer international funds if you're here in this country and sending money, and they'll be happy to do that. But you might be sending $300 and they might be charging you $40 to send it. So basically, they're raping you. So it gets worse and worse and worse. And the more you need the money, the more they take advantage of you. And the more money you have, let's go back, and I'm gonna go off script again for a second. So I think we passed one slide up. So basically, this is a real world example. Zuckerberg wanted to buy a multi-million-dollar house. This was around the time of COVID. And he went to the banks and they said, Mr. Zuckerberg, you got great credit. We'll loan you that money at 1%. Now, meanwhile, a guy with an 800 credit score, that's about as good as you can get, 4%. And what were they buying? Well, here's the difference. They were loaning other people's money to Zuckerberg so that he could do what? So he could put his money in high yield investments and make a fortune. And that poor guy who had a struggle and had an 800 credit score was paying 4%. But what was he buying? Was he putting his money in a high yield account? No, he was buying necessities, things that depreciate. He was buying cars. He was buying groceries. And so basically the difference was they were using his money to enrich Zuckerberg. Is it sinking in, folks? Is it sinking in? Francine, comments before we go on?
It's downright crooked, but justice is coming. Just keep on praying, guys. Justice is coming.
All right. I don't know what you think, but that looks like a dinosaur to me.
Yeah, it does.
Basically, she's running for her life. So what are we talking about here? Credit cards are designed to keep you in perpetual debt, along with everything else, right? And so here's what they do. They go after those that are low income, after senior citizens, after single moms, after students, and they become credit card debt slaves. That's what
Mm,
we saw on that last slide. I just wanted to enumerate it here in text. So basically, let's go to the next slide, and we're going to see that they have. Oh
okay.
my God! Do we have a fair justice system, or do we maybe have a justice system for the rich and one for the poor? Well, do
Yeah,
we have a fair credit system, or do we have, like an example for Zuckerberg a minute ago, one for the rich and one for the poor? So
that's right.
basically, I think it's just exactly that. Oh, here's that Zuckerberger. So basically, I'm just free forming today. We've already covered this slide. So basically, this is where Zuckerberger got a house for 1%, and the poor sucker who worked hard got it for 4%. And he went out and put his money on necessities that depreciated. And Zuckerberg got to go buy another company. Isn't that great? That's the system we're in, folks. Let's go on down. Oh, and now guess what? If we go to the next slide, oh, this should make you mad. Going down. All right, so here's what happens. You work and you pay your income tax, right? And all your other taxes, right? And the IRS is chasing you and looking after you and auditing you and everything else. And oh my God. So you're paying what, 20, 30, 35% on income tax and all those other taxes? Well, let's look at this statistic. The rich, the ultra rich like Zuckerberg, the corporations, they're not paying those kind of taxes. What are they doing? They've got $8 trillion in offshore tax havens, which comes to approximately 10% of the GDP. And all they do is transfer their money. You having trouble sending $10,000 by wire? They get their money out of the country, trillions of it, and it goes to an offshore account in the Caymans or somewhere, and they don't pay any taxes on it at all. And that's 8% of the GDP that's not earning a penny in taxes. But meanwhile, they've got you and they're chasing you and they're auditing you and they're squeezing every last penny out of you. And so
Yeah.
that's the slavery system. So let's go down to the bottom of this and look, just let's use some common sense. The public labors under the oppression of the federal income tax system. And here's what it comes down to: a myriad of other taxes, but the rich are exempt. So here's all we'd have to do. We could pass one simple law that says, hey guys, you want to send your $8 trillion to the Caymans? Be my guest. But you know what? We're going to tax it before it leaves the country.
There
See
you
how
go.
simple that is? See how simple, how easily we can fix things. But you know what? Here's what they've conditioned us to do. You got to be good little boys and girls and abide by the law, the very law that we passed to enslave you. I say throw that away, throw the paradigm away, and let's look at it and say, from an honest viewpoint, what would be fair, what would be equitable, what would be honest, what would be the right thing to do? And the right thing to do would be to tax everybody at the same. And you know what? That's what we're going to do. We're going to have a simple sales tax, just like we did when we set this country up. So basically, if that is taken across the board, it means that at a minimum, the corporations are going to be paying the same thing you pay, fair and equitable and just. Isn't that something?
Yeah.
So, but they don't want us to think that we could actually have a paradigm shift and do what made sense, not what we were forced to do because of laws that were passed to not help us, but to basically help the people who are already absolutely disgustingly wealthy. Let's go on down to the next one. And so they have their tax loopholes. They have their shell companies. They're not even legitimate companies. They're just shell companies. They're just, oh, a word comes to my mind. I think it's called money laundering. So
Yeah.
basically, that's what, and you know what? Trump has put kind of petition so that can't happen because we're going to go into a new economic system, an economic system that's not based on money out of thin air. It's based on commodities that can't be controlled and can't be manipulated. And when that happens, it's run on blockchain. And you know what happens when they do that? The money laundering is visible. Everything is visible. They're not hidden in their cloaks of secrecy anymore. And so the money laundering stops. And if we want to tax them before their money goes out of the country, easy breezy. It can be done. And we can do the same thing by getting election integrity, because on the blockchain, they're not going to be able to steal elections, because the minute somebody votes who's dead, or the minute somebody votes twice, the system's going to catch it. So basically, this is a plea, folks. I know there's a lot of you out there who hate Donald Trump, but if you'll just look at what I'm talking about, if you'll think about what he's doing to defend you and your rights and the rights of your children, you can hate him. You can think he's boisterous. You can think he's arrogant and egotistical. But if you don't stand with him, with the American dream, with what he's standing for America, for making America great, for rebuilding our factories, for rebuilding the American dream of home ownership and creating laws that are fair and equitable, then you're just hurting yourself, folks. You're just hurting yourself. So I ask you, put your biases aside and look at the facts. This is a factual presentation. This is not a presentation that is just comments and opinions. This is the law that has been inflicted upon you to make you a perpetual debt slave. Let's go on down to the next slide. And we're back to those credit cards and to an unbelievable saying, he who controls money controls the world. So I'm going to read this stuff over on the other side, because I want to drive it home. Money buys elections. That means it buys politicians and enslaves us by controlling all the spheres of influence. That means they dumb the schools down. That means they own the politicians, the banks, the corporations, the entertainment, the news media, the military industrial complex, because he who controls the money controls the world. And what's the paradigm shift that can change all that? Here it is right here. That can all be replaced. The fiat monetary system must be allowed to collapse. And that's happening with the silver squeeze and the bonds coming back in and the debt. It's all coming down. And so when that happens, the fiat money system must be allowed to collapse and be replaced by what? By God's commodity-backed economic system that cannot be controlled and manipulated, because it is transparent and because commodities have an inherent value, and the money is not being created out of thin air. It's based on something tangible. So, and that takes us back to our very beginning, where we get rid of all of those extraneous, unlegal, unconstitutional laws and go back to a simple sales tax. The world, when we were building America, couldn't believe that we were building highways, we were building railroads, we were building factories, we were innovating, and the only tax we had was a simple sales tax that was so small that they couldn't believe that we could do what we did with just a simple sales tax. And now with what Trump is doing, we'll have the sales tax, but guess what? We'll be out from under all the other illegal and unconstitutional taxes, and our government will essentially, free from debt, be able to be run on that in concert with what? With the money coming in from the tariffs. So Trump is setting us up to be a nation that's debt-free, to be a government that's debt-free, to be a people that's debt-free, to break the chains of bondage from the corrupt monetary system. And when that happens, folks, you're going to have freedom, and it's going to feel so great you're not even going to know what to do. Let's go to the next slide. We're getting pretty close to being done, but I cannot leave until I introduce you to my three best friends. Barack Obama. I want you to know how these people have treated you. And so Barack Obama gets out of college, out of Harvard, and he's a constitutional lawyer. And the first thing he does is go to work for SEIU. And he decides that, his people, they're not being treated fair, and the poor people are not being treated fair. So he's going to sue Citibank. And this was all, by the way, all orchestrated. And that what came out of that, he won the case, and they did something that had never been done before. All of a sudden, they said, you know what? We're going to create a new system. You can buy a house with zero money down, not a penny. And you know what? We don't even have to check your income verification. We're just going to trust you that really you make $100,000 a year. Sure. Okay. And then what happens? bam, they put you in. It's a subprime loan because you don't have any money down, and it's going to have a trigger that in 3 years the interest rate goes up and it goes up and it goes up. And the next thing they knew would happen is the next thing you do is default, and they would have millions of homeowners that were no longer able to buy a house, and they would take them back. But wait a minute, it gets better. We've got some colleagues that are going to come along and help make this thing as heinous as it can be. So we enter Mr. Bush, and we had a system. We had something called the Glass-Steagall Act that was the firewall against banks that were too big to fail. So what did he do? He says, we're getting rid of Glass-Steagall. And what Glass-Steagall banned was commercial banks, real estate, regular banks, and insurance companies were not allowed to merge because it would make banks that were too big to fail. So 1 month after he gets rid of Glass-Steagall, JP Morgan makes the largest bank merger in the history of the world. And that, did I say Bush? No, that was Clinton who did that. I'm sorry, I was going through the pictures in order. So now we get to Bush, and he did the worst of all. Basically, the governor of Georgia said, we see what's coming, we see what they're doing, and they're going to collapse this system and leave the American people holding the bag, and people are going to lose everything they have. And so the governor of Georgia passed an anti-predatory lending law, and Bush put an entire airplane full of lawyers and sent them down to Georgia, got the law repealed, and went further and said no state can pass anti-predatory lending laws. Set back, and we know what the outcome was. It was the '08 financial collapse, and millions of people lost their homes. So wait a minute. We're not done. We didn't put the icing on the cake yet. There's more. So here's what they did. So now they said, we created this mortgage crisis, but maybe we can make it just a little worse. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the rating companies, and we're going to bribe them to give us AAA ratings on those. What they took the subprime loans that had no money down, combined them with a conventional 20% conventional loan, and marked them AAA rated. And they were just as caustic and rotten as could be. And they sold those to people all over the world. So all of a sudden, this wasn't just a U.S. phenomenon. It was a phenomenon designed to bring the entire world to healed. And that's what those three men did to them. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Obama. Thank you, Bill Clinton, Billy Boy, and thank you, George Bush. That they represent the puppet masters who control us, who control the slavery system. And you have just seen examples of exactly what they do to control you and to enslave you. Shall we go on? You got comments?
Yeah, and who's in charge of them?
Well, the Bilderbergers, the Illuminati, the money delete, whoever, billions and billions and billions of dollars that allows them to say the following: he who controls money controls the world. So when you look at this world, you cannot look at America or China or Russia or India or any other nation and say they're sovereign, because they're not. Because Stalin said any nation who has a central bank, and that's virtually every nation in the world, that's 90% of communizing a nation. And so we don't have freedom. We have communism. We're not a republic. We're not even a democracy. We're under communism. We're under totalitarian rule. And the only difference is they don't have a gun to our head. They just have financial chains on us. And we get up and we work. And let's jump over. We think we got it bad. Let's jump over to China for a second. You know what they do in China? You get up in the morning and you start to work at 9 o'clock. You know what time you get off? 9 o'clock at night, 9 to 9. And you work 6 hours. You work 6 hours a day. 6 days a week. And basically, for doing that, you get the privilege of sharing an apartment, a studio apartment with somebody, because you don't make enough money to have your own home or to even have your own apartment. So the slavery system just gets worse and worse and worse. So let's go on to the next slide, and we'll see what happened after those three men got control of the financial system. The whole thing became welcome to Vegas, welcome to the slot machines, because now there were no controls on the economic system at all, on the banking system. The banks were too big to fail. So now we come into what? We come into '08, and they always control those laws. They get past what they want, and they had it set. So they knew that basically when they basically combined the the 20% down loans and the zero down loans to create what they call collateralized debt applications that they knew was going to collapse the real estate market. They didn't have to worry because they knew that with the Glass-Steagall Act being removed and with all those with Obama and Clinton and Bush having their back, that they knew that the American people were going to have to pay that bill. The bankers weren't going to. How many bankers went to prison for fraud after the 08 housing collapse? Oh, how many of them got their multi-million-dollar bonuses taken away from them?
Right.
Oh, no. What? I think I'm hearing zero. They got their $10 million bonuses. It was a great job. You drove the American people into absolute bankruptcy. Hooray, hooray. We're going to give you a $10 million bonus. That's the system that we're living under, folks. I know I sound a little flippant, but I just need to make you understand. It's not an accident. It's all done on purpose. And let's go on down. And I'm thinking of this lady at the restaurant again. When we go to this next slide, she trusted that bank. She thought, I'm putting my money into the bank and I'm trusting that banker. If you could have seen her eyeballs when I told her what they were doing to her, I thought that. So basically, you know, they want you to be there. We're your friendly community banker. We're here to help you. No, they're not. The schools dumb you. Wait a minute. Before I even read that line, I want each of you to ask yourself a question. Think back when you were in high school. If you went to college, think when you were in college. Do you remember the personal finance course that you took? Do you know what kind of grades you got on it? Can you remember what you learned? Oh, wait a minute. That was a trick question because you didn't take a personal finance course because it wasn't offered, because they didn't want you to know, because we have dumbed the schools down. And I know this firsthand because I lived in the ghetto when I was a kid, and I was young enough that I was bused in the 60s to the suburbs with all the black kids. And we were basically looking for some freedom. So what do they got? They got the wealthy people who go to, where was it that Bush Warren School of Finance? That's where Trump went. So all the elite, all the people with real money get to go and learn about entrepreneurialism, about financing, about investment, all these legal loopholes, et cetera, et cetera. And then we, the middle class, we get a reasonable education so that we can be the working drones that are out there. And then the people that live in the ghettos, they're dumbed down so much you can't even believe it. They have no hope, no opportunity, and they're designed to come out to be prostitutes, to be criminals, because they always want to have angst. They always want us angry at somebody else, because if we're angry at them, we can't make our eyes open up and be angry at the people who are really doing it to us. So basically, they dumb us down. Go ahead. You started to say something.
No, that's absolutely true. I mean, that's their whole agenda. Even today, I mean, nobody knows the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, you know, how to do banking or anything like that. They're not teaching you about how to invest in XRP and silver. And no, absolutely not, because they want you in bondage.
They don't even know what a republic is. They think we're a democracy.
Right.
And they think a democracy is a freedom-loving society. No, it was Benjamin Franklin, I believe it was him, who said, no, the minute that you find that the masses find out that they can get money from the public coffers, it's just a matter of time until the government collapses in a mountain of debt. And that's where we're at. That's the system that we're under. So folks, I mean, you cannot trust these bankers. Now you know what they've done. So now you know, if you're ignorant, then you really can't be held accountable. But if you know and you do nothing, then you can be held accountable. So now, for your sake, for the sake of your children, and for the sake of your grandchildren, we need to stop this. And Donald Trump is doing everything he can to turn the situation around. And so I plead again. You might notice I'm a pro Donald Trump, pro-American person. But you know what? It goes beyond that. And here's why. Because this has been done to every nation in the world. And you look around and you see what's happening in Russia. They're on the brink of an internal collapse because of all the hardships that the Russian people are under. When you go to Venezuela, you see that the people are happy to be up from under that dictatorship. When you go to Iran, you see millions of people standing up. And when you go to China, the same thing is happening. Those nations are in real trouble. And the hope for the world is America. So if we can get out from under the control of the financial elite, if Donald Trump can take that $18 trillion that he's got committed to build new factories, and we can get out from under with the laws that Donald Trump is going to put in that are fair and equitable, if we get out of our $38 trillion debt and all of a sudden know nothing and are under fair and equitable taxes, all of a sudden Donald Trump in his first term got the Chevron decision passed that said we're going to have 5,915 patents available to you so that basically we can rebuild. And so basically Donald Trump is allowing the financial collapse, but then he's reinvigorating the economy with that $18 trillion and taking back the foundation that made America great in the first place. Build America, buy America, and tax other nations to have access to our largest domestic market in the entire world, and basically get us out from under debt. So folks, if you want to have anything other than debt slavery, the only option out there is Donald J. Trump. The midterms are coming up. I encourage you, pay attention, see what this man says. He's unlike any president that I've ever seen. If he says something, if he says this is the red line, you better not cross it. If he says, I make a pledge to the people of the United States, he's made more promises and kept them than any other president in modern history. So it's up to you. You can hate the man because you don't like his character, or you don't like his voiceless, I can't even say it, boisterousness. But if you want to have freedom, then he's the only ticket that's out there. So pay attention, get involved, find out what's going on politically. Let's go on down, and we are going to find out just exactly on this next slide what they're getting ready to do. You think 29 was bad? That was a stock market crash. You think 08 was bad? That was a real estate collapse. This is going to be the first ever everything collapse. The real estate market's going to collapse. The stock market's going to collapse. The bond market's going to collapse. Now that's bad, right? No, yes, it is, but it's also good, because what we have to do is he who controls money controls the world. We have to take the money away from the bad guys. And Donald Trump is going to see to it that that happens, that the debt slavery that we're under is gone, and that we're going to go back into the very, very tax system that made us great in the first place, where all we had was simple sales tax. And let's go to the next slide, and I hope you will pay attention. This one's very important. I'm going to show you how this works, and there's a word written in yellow in that first column, progressive tax. Let me explain to you how it works. So they pass a law and says, we now have an unconstitutional, by the way, federal reserve system that prints money out of nothing, and that goes against our very Constitution, which says you cannot tax a man on his labor, but they do. And so that tax rate can be as high as 35%. So whatever you make $100,000, that's less 35%. And then here's what happens. Now, every dollar that's printed, remember where we started with this, creates a debt obligation. And so after a while, whatever they're bringing in federal income tax isn't sufficient to cover the debt that's accumulating every single solitary day, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. And so they scratch their heads and say, we got to create some new taxes. And they do. That's why they call it progressive tax. So now it's not just that they're taxing you on federal income tax, not one penny of which goes to a school or a road or anything with the people. It all goes over to the European monarchies, to England in particular, to the people who control the world. But now they've got to have more taxes. So they layer a bunch of more taxes on. And then guess what? They say, well, now the debt's so high, we've got to increase the taxes on those new taxes. And before you know it, the American people, retail outlets are closing by the droves because people can't afford to buy any luxuries whatsoever. They only buy necessities, and businesses are going out from they're closing their doors because we're at the top of the apex of the debt crisis right now. So the whole thing has to come crashing down. And what are we going to get? Here's the good news. I always like to close on good news. We get a commodity-backed economic system. And what does that do? We've basically canceled out the debt. It's gone. Donald Trump has erased it. We now have zero debt. Nasara's kicked in. The wealth transfer has happened, and we have a commodity-backed system, and we have it on blockchain, and we have visibility, and all of a sudden the debt goes down, and we get debt forgiveness. That's what's coming, and it's the inverse of what they've always done in the past. So let me bring you another hurrah for Donald J. Trump. So every time we've had a collapse in the past, the global elite have managed it, and they've done it on purpose because the debt burden got so high. They collapsed it. They made you a promise that we're going to go on gold. Well, that stays for a while. And the next thing you know, we're right back in the same process. They make no effort to change the laws, to change the situation that got us into that debt crisis in the first place. So what's Donald Trump doing? He's doing everything to basically create a soft collapse so that America comes out of this not with a full-blown bankruptcy. We still come out of it with our pride and our dignity and our power intact, and we rebuild America. So he has a strategy to create a soft collapse, to come out of this not as the world's reserve currency, but as still the primary reserve currency, because we still have the largest domestic market in the world. And if he backs the dollar going forward by gold, which he said he's going to do, and a stable coin backed by the U.S. government, and then he layers on top of that the fact that he's going to make us a crypto capital of the world. So now a government of the United States of America, government of the people, by the people, for the people, out from under the global financial elite, all of a sudden looks like the best deal in town because we can be trusted, because we're the fairest, most honest government in the world, and we're now an economic engine roaring. So what does Trump has? He has a plan to immediately build us right back up. And it takes me back to what Barack Obama said when Trump came in. What are you going to do? You're going to wave a magic wand? Yep, he did. And the stock market went up from 10,000 to 30,000. And what's he going to do now? Well, he's got another magic wand in his bag, and he's going to wave it, and he's going to build America and create and pull America out of debt. So that here's the kicker. Only and restored, economically sound America can help the rest of the nations of the world restore. He can help us have order out of chaos, because all these other nations are in such bad trouble that they just can't do it. But we have a plan. We have money coming in. We're going to rebuild our factories, and we're not a China where that's basically in utter collapse. We're not Iran. We're the United States of America. We're the most powerful nation in the world. Now, we're not going to come out in a unipolar world anymore. We're going to come out in a world where there's shared power. It's going to be probably the United States, the top of the rung, probably followed by Russia, then followed by China, and then who knows what else. But there'll be 4 or 5 nations that'll share power in a multipolar world, not a unipolar world. But America will still be what it was intended to be, that shining light on the hill that helped all the rest of the world be restored and get out from under this debt system. So let's go on now, and we're going to go to the next slide, and we're going to see next one.
Okay.
Next slide. Okay. And this is what we got to do. And this may sound impossible, but it's not. It's just not impossible. We have to get out from under the current banking system. That's something we need to do. The international corporations, including Wall Street, they need to be allowed to collapse. The politicians, judges, and all the 3-letter organizations need to collapse. And what's that? That's basically starting with Venezuela, with what happened there with the election fraud that's being stolen, moving on to the auto pin, moving on to the disclosure of all the illegal laws that have been passed. And once we understand that, then all these guys can be taken out of the seat of powers, and we get back an honest government. All the 8 spheres of influence come running back to us as soon as we get the money, because he controls the money, controls the world. And all the 3-letter agencies, especially the national intelligence agencies, we do just what we tried to do under Kennedy. He was going to basically strip the power away from them, because he knew they were working for the global financial elite. All these institutions have to be taken out. And oh my God, did any of you happen to watch Davos and what Trump said at Davos? Do you realize he dressed down the UN? He dressed down NATO. He dressed down most of the rest of the world. And they stood there and they took it, because they know that America is still the most powerful nation in the world. And then we look at what's happening with our borders and look at the Council on Foreign Relations, who's supposed to be guardians of our Constitution and our freedom. No, they're an institution that basically declared that they wanted national, when they wanted what? I'm going to read that if I can look forward. Council on Foreign Relations is the American branch of society which originated in England and what believes that national boundaries should be obliterated and a one world government established. And that was by none other than Carol Quigley, who was the CFR member and just happened to be a mentor to who? Who was that? It was one of those three guys in that story we told before, and his name starts with a C, and I think his first name starts with a B, and I think it spells William Bill Clinton. So that basically is the man who mentored Bill Clinton. Go figure. Let's go on down to the next slide. And what we got in a nutshell is it all has to go. The deep state, it's just like out of your Bible. You got to cut it out at the roots. We've got to get rid of all those spheres of influence, get rid of the Council on Foreign Relations, get rid of all the intelligence agencies, kick out 90% of our politicians, rewrite our laws, take those 5,000, take the Constitution now. Maybe it's not called the Constitution, but it's the body of laws that the Supreme Court passed, over 2,000 pages. Throw them out, start over. A new government, new rules, new regulations, new laws, a paradigm shift to what's in the best interest of the people. Because I guarantee you, those laws were written in order to create a legal dictatorship, to put us in a situation, unless we were willing to break the laws, we were going to be kept in perpetuity in debt. And so now what we need is an absolute paradigm shift. Throw the laws out, throw the politicians out, clean the politicians, clean all the spheres of influence, and get back control. They're probably not going to like me. So anyway, we got to the last two slides. You've seen this before. I'm going to pass over it. That's my current book. And then we're going to have a new book, and it just happens that it's coming out. If you go to the next slide, right at the perfect time, God says, I'll release it when it's ready. And basically, we're now ready to do all those things that we've been talking about, all those things that Donald Trump is pushing for, and they will resort in restoring the republic. So this book, no coincidence, is called Liberty Crusade, Restoring the Republic. Back to you, Francine. I know I talk a lot, but there's a lot of information to go through there.
Yes, it is. Well, tell everybody where they can find you.
Well, I live in Branson. No, that's not what you meant, is it? Not at all. I'm just kidding.
Well, Larry, single ladies would love to probably know that, Larry.
I doubt that. I'm an old guy. Anyway, basically, you can go to my website, LarryBallard.com. You can come here. I'm here every week. Come and visit Francine and I. But I now have my own show. I've had it for several months, and it's called Liberty Crusade Official. Liberty Crusade Official. So it's on Rumble and on YouTube. And come visit me there. I'm on 3 days a week, and I'm here every once a week and on several other shows as well. So there you go.
Woohoo! Yeah, and hey guys, you know what? If you want to know more about the vagus nerve, call that 800 number, and one of our team members will get back with you. And this is truly a Maha movement that we have connected ourselves with, and we're just so fired up with all the people that we've been able to help. So just call that number, and again, one of our team members will get a hold of you. What are we going to do next week, Larry? What are you thinking?
I'm going to start a series.
Okay.
We are about to get our financial freedom, and you're about to give some people health freedom. And
Yes,
then we need to basically understand that if we go to the Bible and you go to Genesis and you start reading, you'll find out that we were made responsible for the planet. We're supposed to be the stewards of the planet, and we have done a miserable job. So I'm going to take us on a journey on several shows that are going to tell you how we get back that aspect of our rights and our freedoms, and how we basically get out from under the Green Deal. we get out from under the control of all of the supposed green movements that are actually poisoning the planet, and how we're in a critical crisis. So I think I'm going to start with one that I call the dimming, which is about all the poisons they drop on us, and about the chemtrails and all of that. But I'm working on something that's probably going to be huge. And here's what it's about. But it's going to take me a while. I've got 40 videos that I'm going through laboriously extracting information. And here's what we're going to come to. We're going to understand that something is happening right now that every American should know about, and very few do. The entire world is having a geologic catastrophe happening. There's events happening on the west coast of the United States, on the east coast of the United States. Basically, the geologists are saying that the whole world is ready to light up the ring of fire and have massive earthquakes around the world and massive volcanic eruptions. And guess what? We caused most of it. There's a solar event, but basically most of the responsibility for the upheavals that the world is experiencing, they're going to be cataclysmic, are basically caused by us. And so people need to have their eyes open to know what we have done to this poor planet. It's a live, a breathing planet, and we have poisoned it to death, and it's now convulsing, and they need to know about that. So that's what I'm going to be doing next. And then periodically, I'll probably come out of that when something really important happens that we need to talk about. But that's where probably the next several weeks, maybe the next several months, are going to go on topics like that.
All right,
So
Larry.
come back, learn, and you'll find out that every time you come, the goal, at least, is to open your eyes so the truth can set you free, and understand that we are winning, and we should be grateful that we have Donald Trump in here. And I truly believe that he was anointed by God for this time, and this is the time of restoration. So, folks, I don't want you to leave this being afraid. Even all those earth changes they're going to be okay. The financial system's going to be okay. We're going to get our freedom back, but we have to go through purging. Everything has to be purged. And I know people want to think that there's not going to be any pain, but there will be. But when it's over with, we're going to have a pristine planet, and we're going to have basically a reintroduction of the Garden of Eden. So come find out how we're going to do that.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. And what we've discussed today, Larry, is exactly what you said. We don't want to put people in fear, but to be prepared. And it's all about awareness, responsibility, and we've trusted far too long these systems that we don't understand. And so I thank you, Larry, for bringing the truth out here, to show us about that. No system should have power to quietly destroy families, steal futures. That sounds like the enemy, doesn't it? To come to steal, kill, and destroy. But God, the Lord comes to give us life, and life more abundantly. This is why, honestly, conversations like this truly, truly matter. Again, not to bring fear, but to restore clarity on a system that many of us, well, all of us, we weren't taught that. We really weren't. So if you're watching or listening, let this be your takeaway. Ask questions, learn how the system works, and learn how to invest in silver, gold, if you can, XRP, XLM. Just keep your ears open, Zion oil. Okay. So, Larry, again, thank you for your courage, your research.
One more comment to make, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
You're talking about closing on a positive note. So I said some things there that were scary, but I want to tell you where that ecological set of presentations are going to go.
Okay.
God, ever since 68 when I died, he's had me just read constantly. I've been a perpetual learner. So I had no idea. God, why do I have to learn about climatology? Why do I have to learn about geology? Why do I have to learn about I don't know, a myriad of other things, about asteroids and about the solar system and all of that? Well, guess what? It's all in that series that's coming up. There's a solar event involved. And you know what? If you know geology, you can look at something called tectonic substructure plates, and we can analyze all the places in the world where there's likely to be massive damage done by earthquakes or volcanoes. But you know what comes out of that? If you know the geology that underpins it all, you also find out where the safe places are. So as we go through this, we're going to be doing an upfront, honest analysis of earth changes, but it's not going to be negative. It's going to be God's building you an ark. He wants you to know what's going on. He's going to tell you. He always tells his people before something happens. And if you're living in a place that's really geologically unstable, you're going to find out what it is, and you're going to find out where you might want to move to. But listen to the Lord. If you pay attention, he'll tell you. So
Amen.
the truth will set you free, and we're going to give you some more truth next week.
Amen. Well, thank you so much, Larry. Appreciate you, and appreciate all of you for just supporting the channel, coming on, listening to us, praying for us, encouraging us. That means so much to us. So God bless you, everyone. And thank you again for joining us on Upfront in the Prophetic. Blessings, everyone.